It's dark, well below freezing, and a howl cuts through the trees. For thousands of years, that sound made humans lock their doors and invent monsters. We cast the gray wolf as the ultimate villain, a creature waiting to tear apart anyone who wandered off the path. That fear drove people to poison them, trap them, and shoot them from helicopters. But the actual animal doesn't match the folklore. Wolves care for their injured and elderly. They usually mate for life, and biologists have observed individuals starving themselves after losing a partner. The way they support their family members is rare among wild predators. It is strange that we made a demon out of an animal with a family structure so similar to our own. Instead of seeing parents raising their young, people saw mindless killers. The gap between what wolves actually are and what we thought they were comes down to history. Long before humans domesticated animals, wolves survived the Ice Age by teaming up. They weren't the biggest predators around. They didn't have the strongest jaws or the sharpest claws. Instead, they relied on endurance and cooperation. A single wolf couldn't take down large prey in deep snow, so they had to hunt as a synchronized unit. They learned to track, surround, and outlast their targets as a group. The relationship changed about 10,000 years ago when humans started farming. We stopped following wild herds, settled down, and fenced in sheep, goats, and cows. Forests were cleared for pastures, which drove away the wild prey that wolves usually ate. The wolf suddenly went from a fellow hunter in the woods to a direct threat to our food supply. To a hungry pack, a pen full of slow, defenseless sheep was an obvious meal. But to early farmers, a dead sheep meant a family might go hungry that winter. That economic conflict turned into cultural hatred. We started telling stories about wolves being deceitful and cruel. Fairy tales like Little Red Riding Hood worked as warning labels for children, keeping them away from the woods. Over time, the warning became the whole truth in our minds. That cultural shift made it easy to justify wiping them out. Even our modern understanding was wrong for a long time. The idea of the alpha male wolf, a ruthless leader who rules through violence and constantly fights off challengers, is still everywhere in popular culture. We assumed a pack was a group of ambitious rivals waiting for the leader to show weakness. That concept came from 20th century studies of captive animals. Researchers put unrelated adult wolves from different places into small zoo enclosures and watched them fight for dominance. They assumed this was how wolves acted in the wild. But studying random strangers trapped in a cage doesn't tell you how a natural family behaves in the woods. When researchers started observing wild wolves and using genetic testing, they found something entirely different. A wild wolf pack isn't a gang of rivals fighting for control. It is just a standard family. The leaders are the parents. The rest of the pack are their kids, usually from the last 2 or 3 litters. The parents lead because they know where to find food and how to avoid danger, not because they fight the younger wolves every day. They take care of their own. If a wolf is injured on a hunt, the family doesn't leave it behind. Healthy pack members bring food back to the injured wolf, sometimes regurgitating meat so it is easier for them to eat without chewing. They guard the injured animal and keep its wounds clean. The parents usually stay together for life. They sleep pressed together, groom each other, and communicate with quiet sounds used only between the two of them. When one dies, the survivor often stops eating for days. Researchers have tracked widowed wolves repeatedly returning to the place where their mate died. Raising pups is a group effort. While the mother nurses the newborns and the father patrols the territory, the older siblings act as babysitters. They play with the pups, keep them close to the den, and teach them how to interact. It saves the parents' energy and gives the older siblings practice before they eventually leave to start their own families. This upbringing makes wolves highly observant. They communicate through tiny shifts in ear posture, tail movement, and facial tension. Everyone in the group understands the social dynamics and works together to keep the family fed. Physically, they hunt differently from most large predators. A tiger relies on ambush, needing to get within about 30 feet of its prey to succeed. A cheetah relies on pure speed, but burns out after a quarter of a mile and needs to rest for a long time afterward. Wolves are built for endurance. Their narrow chests and long legs are designed for non-stop movement. They can maintain a steady trot of about 6 miles per hour for hours on end without wasting much energy. Their hearts and lungs are larger than those of similar-sized dogs, allowing them to take in massive amounts of oxygen. If they need to, a pack can cover up to 45 miles in a single night just looking for a meal. Have you ever looked closely at a wolf's paw? It is practically a masterpiece of natural engineering. They are huge, almost ridiculously out of proportion, but they act exactly like snowshoes. They keep a heavy animal from sinking into chest-deep drifts. There is even some light webbing between the toes for muddy ground, but the real magic is inside the pads. Their blood vessels run so close together that the warm arterial blood from the heart heats up the freezing venous blood going back up. That is why wolves can run on solid ice for hours without getting frostbite. With feet like that, you do not need to hide in the bushes. Wolves do not do ambushes. They do marathons. Their whole strategy is just an open, exhausting challenge. Much like African wild dogs, they just run their prey into the dirt, chasing them for miles until the target literally collapses. When a pack runs into a herd of deer or caribou, they start by testing them. They force the herd to run, and then they watch. They have unbelievable sight and smell, and they are looking for the absolute tiniest mistake. A slight limp, a weird step, old age, hidden sickness. The moment they spot that one vulnerable animal, the chase is on. The coordination here is wild. It looks less like a simple hunt and more like killer whales working together. Everyone has a job. The mom and dad usually run point, steering the prey where they want it to go. The younger, faster wolves run the flanks, cutting off escape routes or driving the deer into deep snowdrifts. If the front runner gets tired, another wolf slides right into the spot. They literally pass the baton to keep the pressure on. A heavy elk, built for quick sprints rather than long-distance panic, eventually runs out of air. The wolves just keep coming at that same steady, terrifying jog. The end of the hunt is brutal. There is no room for pity out there. It is just the cold math of survival. When the deer finally drops from pure exhaustion, the pack ends it quickly. It is not pretty, but it keeps the family fed for another freezing week in the woods. Marine biologists talk about something called the ecology of fear. When killer whales show up where great white sharks usually hunt, the sharks run. They just clear out, and that single change reshapes where seals, fish, and birds go for miles. Wolves do the exact same thing on land. For a long time, we naively thought that getting rid of predators was a favor to the forest and the deer. But when wolves were wiped out in places like Yellowstone, the whole ecosystem tanked. Without enemies, the deer and elk multiplied like crazy. They lost all caution. They stopped moving, stood in one place, and ate every single young green shoot down to the mud. Once beautiful valleys turned into dry, empty wastelands. But when we brought the wolves back, that ecology of fear kicked in immediately. The deer had to remember how to look over their shoulders. Fearing an ambush, they stopped hanging out in low valleys and kept moving. And the land just exploded with life. In just a few years, bare riverbanks became thick forests of willow, aspen, and cottonwood. The trees brought back songbirds. All that new wood brought the beavers back, and their dams created quiet ponds where frogs, fish, and ducks started breeding again. Even the rivers changed shape. The massive root systems of the new trees held the banks together, stopping erosion. The channels stabilized, stopped shifting, and ran deeper. Just by being wolves and feeding their families, they literally reshaped the geography of a massive region. They did not destroy the forest, they rebuilt it. But eventually, every young wolf has to leave the warmth of the pack and go out into the dark. It is a terrifying drop. Yesterday, you were part of a perfect team. Today, you are an outsider everywhere you walk. The lone wolf has to navigate valleys owned by other packs, and those packs will kill intruders on sight to protect their deer. So, the young exile learns to be a ghost. He moves silently, stays out of the open, and never leaves scent marks. Hunting alone is a nightmare. Without a team to bring down an elk, you are stuck catching mice, chasing rabbits, or eating leftovers. If you get kicked by a stray hoof, that is probably it. There is no family to bring you food or lick your cuts. It is a brutal filter. A lot of young wolves die of hunger or freeze to death in their first winter. The ones who survive are the smartest, toughest predators on Earth. To break that isolation, the wolf eventually has to take a massive risk. He has to stand on a ridge, open his mouth, and howl. It is a huge gamble because he is telling every enemy in the forest exactly where he is. But wolf howls are not just random noise. They are highly detailed. It is like how different killer whale pods speak in completely unique dialects, or how even European hedgehogs have regional accents. Wolves have turned vocal communication into something incredibly precise. Just by the pitch, length, and tone of a howl, wolves can tell age, size, gender, and mood. Every pack has its own family song. When a pack hears a distant howl, they know right away if it is a neighbor they have a peace treaty with or a complete stranger. So our lone wolf climbs a ridge and lets out a long, clear call. It is not aggressive. It is an invitation. And he waits. Sometimes it takes weeks, but eventually, another voice answers through the cold air. Another exile. When they finally meet, they do not fight. They read each other's body language, play, run together, and make their first kill as a team. Once that happens, the bond is set. They find an empty valley, mark the rocks, and tell the world to stay out. Soon, they have pups in a hidden den. The babies are born blind and helpless, just like lion cubs on the savannah. And suddenly, the wanderer is a father. He is not the alpha because he won some bloody fight. He is the alpha because he built a family. He spends his days hunting, carrying food back to his mate, and watching the den entrance. In a year, those blind pups are teenagers helping to raise the next litter. The machine is running again. We always hear that animal groups are run by brute force. The biggest bully growls and everyone bows down. That is a myth. Wolves actually run on something closer to a democracy. It is like how a bee swarm decides where to move by voting with dances. Before a hunt, wolves hold a group meeting. They gather, rub faces, whine, and wag their tails. They are checking each other's energy. If the teenagers are too tired, or the older hunters show signs of being worn out, they call it off. They do not go. They know that forcing a tired team gets people killed. And they look after their old. In the wild, weakness usually means a death sentence, but intelligent animals value information. Look at killer whales. The oldest females, long past having calves, lead the pod. In dry years, they are the ones who remember ancient migration routes and save everyone from starving. Older wolves do the same. Their bodies might be slowing down, but their minds hold the maps. Old wolves keep the pack alive. By the time a wolf hits 7 or 8, it can't chase down deer anymore. Its joints ache, and its teeth are worn down to the bone. But that old wolf carries a map of the entire territory in its head. It remembers where the deer huddle when the snow gets too deep, where the river ice is thin, and which trails are death traps. The younger wolves don't abandon them. They slow down the hunt and share the best cuts of meat because they know that old memory is the only thing standing between them and starvation when winter turns brutal. People love to think we have wolves all figured out. We study their packs, clock their mileage, and write about how they change the forest. But we are still looking at them through human eyes. To actually understand a wolf, you have to realize they don't even live in our world. Our own senses are incredibly flat. We basically just look at shapes and colors and call it a day. Other animals experience entirely different realities. A cat can navigate pitch-black darkness because its eyes work like mirrors. A hedgehog smells worms moving through 4 inches of packed dirt. Wolves live in an incredibly dense, 3-dimensional world made entirely of scent and sound. To a wolf, the air isn't empty space. It is a thick, constant stream of data. Their noses are packed with hundreds of millions of receptors. They can smell a deer herd 3 miles away. And they don't just get a general whiff of prey. They break the scent down. Just from the sweat and urine left on a snowy branch, a wolf reads the deer's age, its sex, its health, and how scared it was. They know a deer is sick long before they ever see it. Their hearing is just as absurdly sharp. The way their ears are shaped lets them pinpoint sounds with perfect accuracy. A wolf hears a twig snap under an elk's hoof miles away. In the dead of winter, they can hear mice tunneling under feet of snow. That is how a pack moves through pitch-black pine woods at a full run without hitting a single tree. They also have some strange alliances. In the northern woods, ravens and wolves are almost inseparable. Scientists call ravens wolf birds because they act as aerial scouts. A raven will spend hours flying over the forest, spotting carcass sites or weak animals, and then call out in a specific pitch to lead the pack straight to the target. But they don't just work together, they play. You can find ravens teasing wolf pups on purpose. A bird will fly down, peck a pup's tail, and hop away just to start a game of tag. They swap sticks and roll around in the snow. That kind of behavior takes a lot of mutual trust. For the pups, playing is school. Wrestling near the den is how they learn to handle their own strength. When they bite, they have to learn where to stop. If a pup gets too excited and clamps down too hard, the other squeals and walks away. The biter gets ignored, which is the worst punishment for a social animal. They quickly learn that if they want to keep playing, they have to control their jaws. They also swap roles constantly. The pup pinning its brother down will suddenly roll over, expose its belly, and play the victim. This tells us that wolf packs aren't run by rigid, brutal bullies. A healthy wolf knows how to take orders just as well as it knows how to give them. Even the adults join in, letting the pups win to build up their confidence. This ability to cooperate and change plans is why wolves survived the Ice Age. But thousands of years ago, a few wolves tried a different survival strategy. It split their family tree right down the middle, turning one side into our oldest enemies and the other into our best friends. The standard story is that some ancient hunter found a lost wolf pup, raised it, and created the dog. But biology tells a much more realistic story. The wolves chose us. Back then, humans and wolves competed for the same big game. But the wolves that were naturally a bit calmer and less terrified of humans noticed that our camps were surrounded by easy food. Piles of bones, scraps, and skins. For a predator that usually had to run 30 miles through deep snow just to risk getting its head kicked in by an elk, human trash was a miracle. They traded the stress of the wild for easy calories. That choice changed their biology. Since they didn't have to plan hunts or worry about wild threats, their stress hormones dropped. Over generations, their brains actually shrank. Dogs became permanent teenagers. A wild wolf grows up, gets independent, and starts its own family. A dog never really grows up. It looks at a human as a parent for its entire life, always waiting for dinner and permission. So when you hear a wolf howl now, it shouldn't sound scary. The old fairy tales about the big bad wolf don't hold up. Underneath that heavy winter coat is an animal that takes care of its grandparents and grieves when its mate dies. They are forest engineers. Their presence physically keeps the woods healthy and the rivers flowing. They are marathon runners that win through patience, math, and trust. That howl in the night isn't a threat. It is just a family taking roll call, making sure everyone made it through another freezing day because they looked out for each other. If we leave them enough room to live, we keep a little bit of the real, wild world intact.